Okay, so back on with part 9. Now I think we'll just have this video and the next video, and we should be done with this series. So right now we have this enemy attacking our character attacking the enemy. They're both doing damage to each other, but we need to sort of give that feedback to the player. So we're going to go to our content folder, create a new folder, call it HUD, H-U-D, for heads-up display, or you can call it UI or GUI or whatever you want. And then in here, we're going to come to right-click, come to the bottom and choose user interface, and we want a widget blueprint, and we're going to call that HUD for HUD. We're going to open that up. All right, so hopefully you've been in here before, but if you haven't, this is a representation of your screen, and we can place stuff on that screen, and it's essentially going to appear there when we apply this HUD to our player. So let's get and do that. So the first thing we want to do is just drag in a progress bar. This is going to represent our health. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, we wanted to do blocking, didn't we? We'll try and get blocking in as well. Should be able to do that this episode. So get in the health. And that's the health bar, sorry. And then let's just tidy this up a little bit. So we're going to need the player, not the anim BP. We're going to need the player BP though, and we'll probably need the enemy BP. So we'll leave both of them open in the HUD. Okay, so that can be our health bar. In order to just make this work, all we have to do is click on it. Now we can see here that it's called Progress Bar 179. We can rename that to Health Bar if we wanted. So I'm just going to click on that, call it Health Bar. Spelled that right. Health Bar. Okay, and with that selected, come over to here to percentage. Now, if you fill that up, you'll see there's a different, if you set it to sort of 0.5, remember this is the float, so it's from 0 to 1. But set that down to 0, go to bind and create binding, and then drag these two nodes apart. And then from here, just drag out and want to cast player, BP. As the object, we want to get player character. And then as the BP, we want to get health. And then simply just plug that into the return value there. And that's it. Compile, save, that'll all be set up for us. Now what we've got to do is actually draw it onto the screen. So in the player blueprint, right click, and we want an event begin play. Now we should already have one of these, so it's going to, oh no, we don't. So an event begin play, and then drag out and type sequence, because we're going to want to do some more stuff off this later, no doubt. And then drag off that and type type create widget. Create widget. And then on here, you've just got to select the HUD asset we just created in the class. Okay. And then we want to drag out and add to viewport. And then the return value wants to go into the target. Hit compile. And then we've got our health bar. Now, if he hits us, okay, so he's hitting us more than once because we haven't got that do once working. And it seems to be recharging the health. Okay, we've got some problems there, so we need to figure out what's going on. So when we take damage, so this is in the enemy, so let's have a look at the player take damage. Event any damage, take damage, set the health to be damage minus health. Is that what's causing the problem? So we want to set the health to be whatever it is now. So just hit minus, and then we'll should get float minus. So just typing float minus a float. Oh, right. So I think I've just done this the wrong way. The health wants to be in the top, and we want to minus the damage. I think that's the problem. Okay, yeah, that was the problem. But also, we've got the problem that we're taking multiple hits. So what we want to do is we want to go into the player take damage here. And we already have a delay here. So what we'll do is we will take... So once we've set take damage to be true, we'll have a do once. And what we'll reset it is after take damage is equal to be false. We should be able to just reset that because there is a delay. So now when he hits me, it just hits me for 25% damage. And I can get out of the way while he's doing that. I can also hit him. You'll see that if he's doing something else and I hit him, he won't play his reaction animation. So we're going to have to look into that as well. Okay, so let's do that now. So let's go into the enemy and let's go into the enemy folder, go to his blueprints, and then go to the animation blueprint. Now, if we go to the locomotion state here, so this take damage wants to override the attack animation. So if we want to be able to go from attack to take damage, all right? But we don't want to be able to go to take damage to attack. So what are the transitional rules for this? So the transitional rules for this is if attack is true and take damage is true, then transition into take damage. Okay, so open up this, bring in damage and get, bring in attack and get. Okay, so drag out from here and type equal boolean and then copy CV and copy that. That goes in the top there. They're both true. Okay, so what we need is an AND boolean. So drag out and type AND and get an AND boolean. So plug that into the second pin. So this is saying if damage and attack are both true, then you must transition to take damage. Okay, so let's give that a try. Yeah. So no matter what, he will play. Even if he's midway through his attack, he will play damage. He'll take his damage. Now the sword is actually physically hitting him, which is a bit of a problem, right? So what we're going to do, and that's actually causing some physics, but we're going to play with physics now. So let's say, because we haven't given the enemy any health yet, so let's do that. So go into the enemy BP, create a variable called health, and change that to a float, like we always do. With health, compile it, and set it to 1. Okay, now what we want to do is we want an event tick. Okay, so we've already got one up here. So let's drag a sequence off that. And what we want to do is we want to branch. We want to check to see if health, get health, is less or equal. So float is less or equal to 0. Okay, so if health is less or equal to 0, what we're going to do is we're going to, if that's true, we're going to set simulate physics. Set that to be true because we now want it to simulate. Target is self. Actually, maybe the target is the mesh. Yes, the target is the mesh because it's the mesh that we'll be simulating the physics on. So let's just hit compile and see what happens. No, because before we do that, we actually have to set this to be ragdoll. So go to the viewport, click on your mesh, come over to where it says collision, and then under here where it says collision preset, set that to ragdoll. Okay, that's not going to change anything initially, but it should let him turn to ragdoll when I hit him a couple of times. Right, his health definitely should be below. Okay, so we haven't. I know what the problem is. So open up your enemy blueprint again. Go to where we are dealing damage, and we've got to do that sum like we did before. So we've got to get health, set it, drag out, and we want to float minus a float. And the health wants to be the top number, and the damage wants to be the bottom number. So we are minusing the damage from the health. Then hit compile. And now we should be able to make that check. So 1, 2, 3, 4. No. What? His health definitely should. We need to print a string there. We need to see what's going wrong. Oh, look, we haven't. Yeah. So pretty obvious what's gone wrong there. We haven't actually plugged in the arrows. 1. Okay. Right. So he's obviously taking more than one hit. Well, the do once should be working. Okay, so yeah, the do once is going to have to come before here now. So we need, yeah, okay, so that makes sense. So just unplug this do once by holding Alt, drag it back before this, plug that into there, plug that into there, plug that into there, and then come after here, this delay, and then plug that back into the reset, compile. So now we should be able to hit him a few times before, yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then he activates Ragdoll. Okay, that looks cool. Right, his head spinning, but you know, that's just one of them things. That's what them monsters do when they die. Let's check the time. Okay, we've got a bit more time. So next thing, we'll do the blocking in the next video. We might have to do a few more videos, but the next thing we're going to do is open up the player, and we're going to prevent the sword from actually hitting the enemy. So go to the sword, and you'll see here, and you'll also see it selected. It's a static mesh if you haven't renamed it. And then come over to collisions, and then just no collision. Okay, because we don't want the sword to actually collide with the guy, because we've got the collisions happening in the animation notification state through that sphere. So that'll now not affect him. But you'll see the ragdoll doesn't work quite as well. He just falls down now. And also, I should. Right, I can still What? I took damage then. Okay, I can still take damage because his sphere trace is still active for some reason. I think it's because he died halfway through an attack and it kept his sphere trace active. So we need to look at that. Okay. So, right, what can we quickly do? All right, yeah. So when this player dies, okay, so when we activate Ragdoll, what's happening is you see, we actually collide when we collide with the enemy with this, okay? So what we've got to do is we've got to turn the collision for this off when he's dead, okay? So let's see where we're doing the death, which is here. So we need to set simulate physics, but we also got to drag in the capsule component and type collision. Oh, I've got to put on context sensitive. I'm sure it's a collision preset. Set collision enabled is the one you want, and then we want to set it to no collision. So now we will not be able to interact. In fact, do these the other way around. Set collision to be disabled, and then set simulate physics so that it'll just quickly interact with it if you do it the other way around, because it will just quickly interact. And then what we could also do is add an impulse at location, so that it sort of flies off in a random direction. But I don't think we'll need to do that just now. Right, so I think we'll call this death. Oops, what happened there? C and call this death. And then obviously we need to go do the same thing for the player, right? So we'll quickly go do the same thing for the player. So we need an event tick. And that event tick has a branch, of course, and it wants to see drag in health, get it, and we want to know if a float is equal or less than 0. If it is, we want to get the capsule, and we want to set collisions enabled to no collisions. And then we also want to grab the mesh and we want to set simulate physics like that. And the new one is simulate, so make sure you tick that. Did we do anything else in the enemy VP? No. But we need to go into the player and set her collision. So go to the mesh and come down to collisions and set the collisions to be ragdoll. And then hit compile. And then just give that a test. So now we should die and go ragdoll. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. And the ragdoll seems to be broken as well. But that's not something we're going to be dealing with in this video. Of course, you can just put in a death animation instead of a ragdoll, but sometimes these animations from Mixamo come with broken ragdolls. You can, I believe, going to content, player, mesh, and then go into this physics asset. All right, yeah, you can see that they're a little wonky and they're causing problems. So I think if you just go in and resize these, so they're resized a little better to each point, and they're not overlapping with each other quite so much, you're going to get way better collisions. But that's something for a completely different video. You know, I'm not intending to go over this too much. But if you want to just go through, make these slightly smaller so that they actually overlap the player a little better, then that's definitely going to give you better ragdoll. Look, they're all over the place. That one is all over the place. That one tiny bit smaller. This one. All overlapping with each other in a way that's a little off. So again, this is not, and this is a whole subject to itself. So let's just try and line that up a little better. And it's not something I've done a great deal of, but you know, we fixed it a little bit there. Let's have a look, see if we get any better results. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, yeah. So ragdoll's not the best, but we're going to leave it like that for this video. I'll see you in the next one.